Now, by this point on my channel, I made it pretty clear that just a relatively small amount of shares of SCHD ETF could compound even a rather small portfolio into a massive one long term. And this is simply because based off of the previous dividend growth rate that SCHD has offered historically, even if you only have a rather small amount of shares and just hold onto those shares over time, reinvest those dividends into more and more shares, as you can see right here, your dividend income is going to compound significantly, again in a relatively short time frame. But in this video specifically, we're going to go even beyond what we normally talk about when it comes to SCHD, and I'm going to share with you guys how just a $15,000 initial principal investment into a high quality dividend growth like this one that has been growing over time and paying more and more in dividends over time could almost without a doubt compound a relatively small portfolio into a massive one, potentially even to the point to where you could achieve generational wealth if of course an investor just stays the course and stays invested long enough. But one thing's for certain, if you guys hold onto any shares of SCHD and are building out a long-term portfolio, make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into it. My A to Z dividend investing ebook has helped countless dividend investors get started with their journey. And my custom dividend tracker that I'm constantly using here on the channel has also helped so many investors stay on track and allow them to see their dividend income in real time. Well, today I have another treat for you guys. I'm not only going to offer you my A to Z dividend investing ebook and the custom dividend tracker, but also just for a short limited time, I'm going to be adding in my brand new weekly dividend blueprint ebook to show you how you can get started with weekly dividend ETFs and add this into your investing strategy. This offer is not going to last long, so go ahead and click the first link down below in my description, and you're going to get both ebooks and the custom dividend tracker bundle. But like I said, please act fast because this won't be around for long. Now let's get back into the video. Now again, just to sort of backtrack, as of right now, I'm currently a 32-year-old dividend growth investor that is currently holding across all my portfolios around 2,352 shares of SCHD that I've been acquiring for the last 3 or so years now. Now, a lot of you guys already know this, but for those of you guys that don't, I've been buying SCHD shares almost every single trading day, utilizing my cash balance in my portfolio and using a lot of it towards this ETF specifically. Now, with the 2,352 shares to be exact, as of right now, I'm currently earning around $2,328 per year in dividend income. Now, that's not necessarily enough to live off of or enough to retire off of, but over the next several years, based off of a 10% dividend growth rate, as you can see right here, my dividend income, if I don't even buy another single share, is going to grow and compound and compound and compound. Now that, along with other reasons that we're going to talk about, is one of the main reasons that I started buying shares of SCHD ETF, is because at 32 years old, I don't necessarily need that much dividend income today or tomorrow, but if I want to retire off my dividends later on, buying into an ETF like this one specifically, that at least historically has raised their dividends very quickly, is going to help compound my portfolio and really build out that snowball effect that we're all looking for. Now, some of the other reasons I'm so fond of SCHD is because it tracks a high quality index that's made up of around 100 different names that all have to make it through multiple different screenings to even make it in the fund. Also, SCHD is tax efficient, it costs almost nothing to hold on to, it's well diversified like I said, and sort of as a bonus over the long term at least, this ETF has been growing up and to the right significantly. Now, as a long-term holding, I don't necessarily even care all that much as of right now if this ETF is going to grow, but it sort of is a bonus just to see my portfolio hopefully grow over time, along with my dividends and my dividend income, which is exactly what SCHD's dividends have done historically. Now, for example, the most recent dividend that SCHD paid was 26 cents, and this was paid out in December. Now, if we go 10 years back or so, a 9-cent dividend was paid in the month of December in 2014, which means investors that did nothing but just hold onto their shares of SCHD over the last decade are now getting paid almost 4 times as much income, which is significant. Now, one of the main criticisms I see when it comes to SCHD ETF, especially because right now in the market, there's so many higher yielding dividend focused or distribution focused ETFs out there that might be yielding 5%, 10%, or even 50% right to start. A lot of investors are saying you would have to spend so much money and buy so many shares of SCHD, for example, which only yields around 3.6%, if of course you want to generate any sort of significant dividend income, just because again, the yield is relatively small to start off with. But what a lot of investors don't really realize is that with a 12% dividend growth rate trailing 12 months, or over the last 10 years with an 11% on average dividend growth rate, even some of the highest yielding ETFs out there are going to have a struggle to outperform SCHD because again, the ETF is growing significantly over time, or at least it has historically, and again, it's paying more and more in dividend income, which is going to compound a portfolio a lot over the years. Now that brings me back into the title of the video. I promised you guys that just a $15,000 investment into SCHD could potentially be enough money to compound a small portfolio long term into the future, and even potentially get yourself to the point to where you build generational wealth. Now with a $15,000 initial investment, $5,000 on top of that from there every single year. So that means that you're buying $15K worth of SCHD and adding another $600 per month, which of course you can make this higher or lower, but for this video's example, I think this is still a relatively obtainable goal. Now, SCHD offers a 3.6% initial annual dividend yield, 10% expected annual dividend amount increase, which again can go up or down, a 5% share price appreciation percentage, 30 years invested, DRIP is going to be turned on, so over the years, all these dividends are going to be reinvesting into more shares of SCHD. Now, before we go ahead and calculate this, it seems like just off a first glance that there's absolutely no way that a portfolio with just this amount of money can compound into a portfolio that's going to allow you and your family to achieve financial freedom. But let's go ahead and see what happens, because I promise you these numbers are going to shock you. So the numbers are in with $15,000 worth of SCHD right off the bat. We're talking just around $550 per year in dividends. But after that year-over-year dividend increase, along with that $5,000 contribution, which again, you don't have to do, you could also just let this portfolio ride. By year number 2, we're at over $21,000 with over $800 per year in dividends. Now again, building a massive portfolio with just a $15,000 investment into SCHD ETF is not going to happen overnight. No one ever said it's going to. Now, of course, if you have $1 million to invest in this ETF, maybe things will be different. But what's crazy is that 5 years down the road, the portfolio has over doubled at over $43,000 and almost $2,000 per year in dividends. Again, nothing insane, but based off of a $15,000 principal investment, we're starting to cook a little bit here. Now, 10 years down the road, the portfolio is almost at 6 figures and over $5,400 per year in dividends. Now, again, say if you're 20 years old, 30 years old, 35 years old, in that range, you're going to have a long time from ahead of you before you even really want to touch your dividends, most likely. So 20 years down the road, this portfolio that started with $15,000 is now at almost $360K with around $32,000 per year, every year that is in dividends. Now again, at this point, depending on where you're at, what your other income sources are, you might actually be able to even retire potentially, or at least partially retire with the dividend income and principal alone. But by year number 20 to 30, this is where the numbers really start to curve and the power of compounding really starts to kick in. By year number 25, we're at $708,000 and $81,000 per year in dividends. Now imagine if you were at this spot, you're getting $81,000 per year. Maybe you decide to use half of those dividends for things like expenses, maybe some bills, maybe some vacations, and maybe you reinvest the rest of it back into more shares of SCHD, which is only going to compound the portfolio, at least theoretically, faster. Now, to skip right to the point, after 30 years of investing, based off of the numbers that we use, which again are all just estimated, we're at $1.774 million and over $220,000 per year in dividends. Now again, maybe SCHD's dividend growth doesn't keep going as fast as it did at one time, or maybe you want to add in more or less money on a yearly basis, but I just proved the basic point that just a $15,000 investment invested long enough in the market based off of the numbers we used, which are the numbers brought to us by SCHD ETF itself, are definitely enough to build massive generational wealth if an investor stays the course. So even though I see a lot of investors criticizing SCHD or some of these dividend growth ETFs that offer a relatively low starting yield compared to some of the other investing vehicles out there these days, for me personally, as you guys can see right here throughout my entire portfolio, I'm still utilizing SCHD quite a bit to use as a dividend growth monster in my portfolio to hopefully propel my portfolio's value, but also dividend income long term into the future. Now that being said, I own tons of other ETFs and single stocks in my portfolio, and I'm not saying that my portfolio is 100% SCHD whatsoever, but I like making these videos and showing you guys some of the math behind what a relatively small number would look like invested into a high quality dividend growth ETF. And this is again, say over a 10, 20, or 30 year time frame. So now that we talked about SCHD ETF, I share with you guys how many shares I currently have, how much I'm currently earning in dividend income, and what the dividend growth looks like for myself moving forward, along with what the potential numbers could look like long term with just a $15,000 starting principal investment into SCHD over the next 30 or so years. I lastly, most importantly, have a question for you guys, and I want you guys to comment down below. What is your favorite dividend growth style ETF across the entire market? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.